All right, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. We've got Tom Schwab here from Goodbye Crutches, where we're going to talk about inbound marketing for e-commerce. And another topic that he kind of brought up was, are you chasing transactions or are you building a business? So Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about your business a little bit. So what's the background of Goodbye Crutches?
Yeah, we started out in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We were just a regional business in Michigan here, and our main product line was selling orthopedic implants to doctors. You know, the shoulders, the hips, the artificial knees, and we had a little sideline business because the doctors kept saying, "Help our patients stay off their healing foot." And so we were doing the knee scooters and crutch alternatives before they really got more popular. And when the economy took a downturn, most of the manufacturers wanted to cut out the distributors and save some money, which made a whole lot of sense till you looked in the mirror and realized that we were the middleman. So we looked at this side business that we had with crutch alternatives and said, we're getting so much good feedback on this locally in Michigan. Could we go ahead and expand that? So that's what we did, and that was about 5 years ago. And with that, we went from a regional player to a national leader, and really got used that to get partners overseas also. I can't say that there was a lot of strategic thought in it, other than we saw the opportunity to serve more people.
Gotcha. So just to confirm, like the landscape. So when you go to a doctor and you get crutches, how does that supply chain work? In terms of when you say there's distributors, retailers, and like manufacturers, because it seems kind of very opaque for like people that aren't in the medical field.
Let me explain it this way. So most of the time, you don't plan ahead to be off your foot. Sometimes you do because of surgery, and people can do that. But a lot of times it's just, you leave the emergency room or the doctor's office, and they hand you this pair of archaic crutches, and then you realize that, wow, I've got to stay off my foot for 8 weeks. But I can't still be a mom. I can't be a dad. I can't work. So that very quickly they start looking for alternatives, and most of the time they're hard to find the alternatives. It's getting better now, but when it first started out, people were just asking their doctor if he knew of anything better. They were going on and going to forums online. They would, they're a captive audience. They're sitting at home, and they would look and start Googling for alternatives and options. And the other thing that was really interesting from the e-commerce business, if you're stuck at home, that's probably the easiest place to buy something. It's not like that you can drive someplace and get it. So it was perfect for the e-commerce model there.
It's great market to be in actually for e-commerce, because there's no like store where you can just go shop for crutches too, right? I guess there may be a few, but if your foot's out, you just can't drive there and go check
Yeah,
something.
and they're getting to be more, but you look at those, most of those, or they call them durable medical equipment stores, and they're open from 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night. And like I said, if people can't drive there, they've got to ask a friend to go there, and it just becomes a real hassle. And the people are in a very delicate position there. No matter how bad the recovery was that they thought, it's probably worse. So with that, they're really looking for helpful ideas and helpful solutions, and that's what we try to focus on. Is not so much the product, but helping them. We had a customer that said that you got to remember, everybody is selling Preparation H, right? Nobody wants your product, because all products or services are designed to fix a problem, and he said nobody wants a problem. So, but when you have a problem, you want something that's recommended, gives relief fast, all the rest of that.
Yeah, because unless your leg's out, you have no reason to go look for crutches. It's like one of the last things you'll be looking for.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so I guess let's go back to the story a little bit. So you kind of shifted the focus into the side business, and you kind of grew it. How did you kind of grow that business? Starting out when you decided to
What
become like.
we went, and we started importing some of ours. We started to do a little bit of manufacturing, but mostly we were just going ahead and trying to build the distribution on it. We saw that there was so much opportunity out there, and so there were so many ways that people were talking about, different tricks to build a business. And you listen to one expert, and they're like, oh, you got to do it with, pay per click. And so we did that. You've got to do it with, SEO. So we did that, but I think it was Winston Churchill that said, "You got to give it to Americans; they'll do the right thing after they've done the wrong thing." Uh, and I think that would make me a true-blooded American because all of the things that we did, we grew our business great with AdWords, but as I looked at it, it was chasing a transaction, not really building a business. I knew that I could go ahead and spend $1 and make $3, and that worked out really well. But if I stopped spending that dollar, my business would die. Another thing that I saw is that in any market, um, it's going to come to be more and more competitive. It's a true supply and demand curve on Google AdWords or any paid advertising, right? So your conversion rate is going to go down with time. Your cost of customer acquisition is going to go up with time. And even early on, I looked at that and looked and said, okay, it's working right now, but I don't see how this is going to work in 12 months or 24 months. So I looked at it and said, I've got to do something to build my business as opposed to just chase transactions.
So you're saying, when you're running AdWords, you're seeing the bids go up over like a couple months, and you're just like, at this trajectory, at some point it's not going to work out, right? The numbers just aren't going to work.
Exactly. And you look at it at any place where you're trying to buy attention. If you get in there early, you can get it cheap. Facebook still is pretty cheap right now. There's questions if it works, but it's not going to be as cheap a year from now. When Twitter, has their paid ads, it'll probably be inexpensive from the beginning, but it will always go up. It's a true supply and demand curve.
Tom, do you get a lot of repeat business, or is it all pretty much a one-off? Someone gets injured and they want to buy something.
That's an interesting question, and I say that we're probably the only business that doesn't want repeat customers, right? Because one time on crutches or on one foot is enough for anybody in their lifetime. But what we do to try to increase the lifetime value of a customer is not to really treat them like a customer, but try to make them an advocate, right? So when somebody is walking around and using one of our products, we want them to talk about Goodbye Crutches, not necessarily the product. We want them to talk about the experience and what it's meant to them. And really, when you think about it, they're walking billboards for us or rolling billboards if they've got a knee scooter. They're the ones that are in there in the doctor's office every day, and they're telling the doctor about us. They're telling other patients. So we really build our business and build the lifetime value out of how many customers we can get, how many new customers we can get from an existing customer. And one of the things we always do is we measure Net Promoter Score. That's that question, that we all get, on a scale of 0 to 10. How likely are you to recommend this company to a friend or colleague? And we take that really seriously. Our score is up there if you compared it to the top Fortune 500 companies, ours is way up there in the 80s. And so that if somebody answers that and says that they'd be a promoter, then boy, we really tap into them and we go ahead and give them all the information and resources that they need so that they can go ahead and do what they said they wanted to do, is promote us to friends and colleagues.
Is it right to say that also when someone buys one of your products, they break their leg, they recover, and then like a year from now, a friend breaks their leg, and they would tell them, hey, go with Goodbye Crutches because last time I did it, I used them and they were cool. Is that like a big kind of growth strategy you guys have? Or?
It is, but I don't know if a year is the right time frame. I'll be honest. People are all into us for the 8 weeks that they're recovering. They probably remember us for a couple months after that. But if you think about it, you move on in your life with something. And so I don't know if they would remember the name, the phone number, all the rest of that for years. And we have some that are still in our community and everything. But most of the time, what we see is the first 3 to 6 months is where we get most of the referrals.
So I guess in terms of your customer demographic, is there like an older demographic that just has to have crutches all the time versus like a temporary, younger person that just needs it for like 2 to 3 months?
We really looked at that as far as we call them customer personas, and we've got to make sure that we identify who it is and that we target them and segment them accordingly, right? So we've got one that's called Andy the Active Athlete. So he's that guy that's probably 20 to 35, guy or girl, that hurt themselves doing something really fun. Skiing, snowboarding, pulled their Achilles tendon, playing basketball, something like that. And then on the other side, we've got Jerry, the on-the-go grandparent, and that's the person that maybe is having bunion surgery, maybe fell down and broke something, and they're so different. They might use the same products, but if you show Andy, the active athlete, a picture of the product with an old person on it, he will look at that and say, I would never get on that. That's something my grandmother would use. If I showed your grandmother a picture of that same product and you were on it, the first thing that she would say is, oh no, I couldn't use that. I'd get hurt. I'd break something. I'd break my neck. So really, there's different motivations. Andy, the active athlete, wants to get going, but he wants to look cool. Jerry, the on-the-go grandparent, wants safety and stability. So what we do is we ask a lot of open-ended questions, and that's one of those great things with the guides. If somebody downloads the Achilles guide, most older people don't rupture their Achilles. It's mostly younger people. So if you download that guide, what you'll start seeing in the pictures that we send you, the emails, it'll be more younger people. There's a guide that says it's the Motivated Mom's Manual to Doing It All on One Foot. Well, if you download that guide, then you get segmented and identified as that buyer persona. So now all the emails that we send are focus on that. So we'll talk about problems moms would have. We'll do helpful tips with that. Hey, here's some blogs that might be helpful, and we'll definitely make sure that all the pictures of the happy customers look like her.
Yeah. So how many avatars did you start with? Because I noticed your website now. If you go to goodbyecrutches.com, and I think you go to guides, there's like 12 guides, and then each one is like a separate opt-in. And it was something really clever was that when you opt in, you actually fill out a survey. Like I remember, like what's your biggest challenge, and then you guys get more info to kind of follow up with too.
Yeah, it's if you go to our homepage, you can see all four of our main avatars, and they actually scroll across down the front. So we've got Andy, the active athlete. We've got Mary, the motivated mom. Woody, the working dad, and then Jerry, the on-the-go grandparent. So there's really I guess there's a fifth one, which is more the healthcare provider that we focus on, and that's more of a B2B role. But we really just focus it down to 5 basic personas. As far as the different guides, we've just started to do those over time and keep answering questions that people ask. And it's a great way. We always ask open-ended questions because most marketers don't like to do that because it's hard to automate it. But boy, if you ask somebody what's your biggest struggle that our product could help you with, boy, that's gold. They just said this is how I want to be sold to, and even with open-ended questions like that, 80% of the people come up with the same 20 complaints, or 20% of the complaints. So you can put them into buckets really quickly, and it's a great way to connect with people also.
Yeah. So what do you guys do with those buckets after you say you have like 100 data points to kind of work through?
Well, for each, one of the great tragedies is that we talk about unique visitors, but then we treat them all the same. So what we try doing is get as much interaction with you early on. So we'll give you a free guide, we'll give you helpful tips, something like that, to try to start the discussion and the engagement. And you can really do this with any product out there. And with that, just start to segment them. So we're looking at each person, and once they go ahead and answer certain things in the logic, the automation software, we use HubSpot. There's other ones that work out there too, and that'll go through and put them in a different workflow for what emails they get. Sometimes we'll even ask, how fast do you need the product? Because ours is pretty time dependent. If you need it yesterday, next week, or next month, it makes a big difference in how fast the emails go out.
Gotcha. And it helps your shipping department figure out what stuff needs to move faster and all that stuff too.
Exactly. I mean, if it's somebody that needs it right away, boom, maybe we'll have somebody personally email them or, suggest to them, well, we do in one of the auto follow-ups that they can call or, chat us online. Somebody that needs it a month from now, you don't have to work with them. You don't have to be as aggressive with them.
Yeah, so if we go back a little bit, how did you get into the whole inbound game? Because you sound like you're a little more experienced, older, kind of old school e-commerce guy. And most guys are kind of still new to the internet. Like, how did you learn this on your own?
Well, the funny part is that as I'm going through my pay-per-click addiction and trying to figure out how I'm going to build a business as opposed to chasing a transaction, I read a book by two smart guys from MIT, and the name of the book is Inbound Marketing. And what they were saying, how the world was changing, made a whole lot of sense. That people are using, Google as a search engine to find answers. They're listening to podcasts to get content. They're looking for help in buying. They don't want to be sold. And so with this, their thought was that the person that can build the brand awareness and build the thought leadership and the trust will be the one that wins. And that the way you would do that was being out there, being accessible, answering the questions that people had. So I read that book and said, this makes a whole lot of sense. Talked with the company that was doing it. And at that time, about 5 years ago, nobody in e-commerce was doing it. At that time, the tool was very expensive also. So we looked at it and said, well, let's do a proof of concept. So we hacked it together with free tools or nearly free tools. We used a WordPress site. We used MailChimp. We used Google Analytics. And we just started putting out content out there, blogs, ebooks, downloads, and different offers. And we were just amazed, really within the first 3 months, at the traffic we got, the engagement we got, and the customers that we got out of it. So at that point, we said, hey, we need to switch. So with that, we went and took our pay-per-click budget, which at that time was about $3,000 a month, and we started to cut that down as we ramped up the inbound marketing. And we were largely off pay-per-click in about 9 months. And when we started out, we were buying about, 4,000 visitors a month from paid traffic, and almost all of our customers or all of our traffic came from paid traffic. And within about 3 years, we were up to 70,000 unique organic visitors. And the thing is that those organic visitors were engaging better and converting better than the paid traffic ever was.
Nice. So how did you do about the promotion when you first had the inbound content? Did you do like guest posts on other places, or how was like the distribution strategy?
The idea of if I post it, they will come is almost like the e-commerce one. Well, if I just put up a website, everybody will come to it. Just because you put a blog out there doesn't mean people will find it. And I think too often we spend time producing more content instead of promoting and repurposing the stuff that we already have. And if I was to do it again, I would do it differently and repurpose a lot more. So, for example, we're real big right now on trying to be on podcasts, both for ourselves and some of our clients that we work with. So, you take a podcast like this, you could go ahead, transcribe it, and so you take a 30-minute podcast, you could probably find enough content in there to, do 4 or 5 blogs just by transcribing it. You could take a couple good quotes from there, make some images on them and put them up in Pinterest or Instagram, other places like that. Because really what you need to do is make sure your content is out there where your customers are. People say, well, should I be on Snapchat? Well, are your customers on Snapchat? Should I be on Pinterest? Well, if your customer is on Pinterest, you should be. Or even looking at it and saying, what persona is on there? So we'll go ahead and for Goodbye Crutches, we'll put some of the Mary the Motivated Mom stuff on Pinterest and maybe Jerry the On-the-Go grandparent. But, it tends to be more of a female-dominated medium right there. So
Yeah, it's like if I'm selling Harley Davidson motorcycle parts, why would I go on Pinterest? or
exactly. Or if you're selling Boeing aircraft parts, that Pinterest will not work for you. But there's enough areas that you can, and especially um, if you figure out where your ideal customers are. It was funny. I was talking with a friend about getting ready for talking with you here, and we were talking about things like leather wallets. Well, does anybody go online to look and say, where can I buy a leather wallet? Well, no, but they're always talking about, dress for success. What should I give as a wedding gift or to my groomsmen? What's the best Father's Day gift to get? Well, those are all things that you can have that discussion with and really help people, help their answers. I mean, even on podcasts, there's a one out there that's called The Art of Manliness, and it's a great guys podcast. And you could talk about wallets without talking about wallets. Talking about the things in details that will make you stand out. It doesn't make you look good on a date or a job interview or whatever if you pull out your wallet and you have a couple $100 bills there, but it looks like the same wallet that you got when you were 16 and you put your driver's license in. So with that, there's all.
and the thing and the thing is, women notice that stuff, man. The little details. They get that stuff that
Well, and
sometimes
that's the
we
thing is,
miss.
do I really want to buy a wallet? Maybe, maybe not. But I tell you what, I want to impress my girlfriend, my boss, whatever. That's the motivation there. It's once again that preparation H. Everybody just wants to solve their problem.
Yeah, exactly. It boils down to like an identity and reflection of self thing.
Yes,
Like how people look at you in some ways. You're buying that. You're not buying the wallet. That's just a tool that helps you with
exactly.
that. You have all these guides on your site. I guess 12 books, and you kind of use HubSpot to automate them. And after purchase, do you do anything for like retention there, or what kind of?
Yeah, really, our buying cycle is really fast, right? You're not going to spend 4 or 5 weeks thinking about this purchase if you need something like ours. Our buying cycle is very fast, so we can't nurture them nearly as much before the process or before the transaction as after. And with that, that's where we really use a lot of the automation and really focus on turning that customer into an advocate. So with that, if you order something from us, of course you get the credit card email, you get the shipping confirmation, but even before it arrives on your doorstep, you're going to get an email that's got the instruction manual to it. It's got the video because we want to make sure that they know what they're doing, and it cuts down on the calls that we get on how to put something together or how something works. And also, people are excited before they get it. So that happens before the unit even arrives. After the unit arrives, the next day they will go ahead and get an email that talks about, hey, here's some tips and tricks from other people that you might find helpful. They'll get another one that's automated from our director of customer care that just says, hey, if there's anything we can do for you, please reach out to me or my team. So now they've gotten helpful, helpful, helpful. The next one's an upsell. We've got a different audience too. I mean, they're more captive, and we've tested this a lot. They open these emails. They open them. They take action on it. As time goes on, we do fewer and fewer emails, but we invite them. We've got just an online community that they can go to and communicate with other people in similar circumstances. So we put all that together, and really what we're trying to do is keep our name and the thought of us in the front of their mind for that entire recovery period. And then, of course, at some point, we give them the Net Promoter Score survey to see if they're a promoter. And if they are, then they go into a separate workflow where we talk about different things. I would never ask for somebody to give me a review online or leave a comment on Facebook or anything like that until I knew if they were a promoter or not.
What does that survey look like? What does the survey look like when you send it to them and say, hey, are you interested in being an advocate? That's something I kind of struggle with because I don't ever fill that kind of stuff out. Like I'm like, oh, that's more work for me. So how do you do it so you're able to get people to actually fill that survey out?
Yeah, we have quite a few people fill out the survey. It's about 60%,
Wow.
uh, which is great. But we don't take them to a separate page to fill out the survey, right? So it's a very nondescript, non-marketing email. It comes from a person to a person. So it comes, it doesn't have logos on it and calls to actions and everything like that. It just comes out and it says from our director of customer care. It says, "Can I ask you one important question?" Is the subject line, and then it says, "May I ask you one important question? This is how we improve to serve others better." And then it's, "How likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague?" And it's the numbers 0 through 10 there. If they give you a 0 through 6, it's referred to as a detractor. Those are the people that loathe you. 7 and 8s, they don't care about you. And the 9s and 10s are promoters. So the way we've got it automated is that, okay, they get that email, and if they click on 0 through 6, it takes them to a landing page that, says, "We're sorry, how can we help you?" 7 and 8s go to a different landing page. And then the 9s and 10s, which are promoters, they go to a different landing page. And we work that off of marketing automation. If they hit that landing page, they get marked as a promoter, a detractor, or neutral, and then they get put in different segments. So it's not a complicated system either for us or for the user. The reason I don't take most surveys is because they take forever to load and got to go to MailChimp, and it just takes too long. This is all in an email. Yeah, it's HTML, and it's the numbers 0 through 10 are just hyperlinked to the landing page. So it's as straightforward as you can get.
It's interesting because I was talking about this to a friend the other day. When we're taking Ubers, you can choose 1 to 5 stars for your drive, right? But if you have a bad experience, whether it's a 1 or a 2, it's the same message, pretty much, right? Whereas 0 to 6, how nice do I want to be, or how mean do I want to be? Like a 0 and a 1 is the same thing, basically.
People will say, "Well, how come it's 0 through 10 and not 0 through 5?" And even our customer service people have told us, "An 8, that's sort of like they like us." I'm like, we can argue about the semantics on it. It's been studied, and the statisticians have come out and said this is what it is. But I just, I look at it from the standpoint of, if you asked somebody that you were dating, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love me? If they don't give you a 9 or 10, that's a bad, bad
Yeah,
signal.
exactly. And then a 6 is might as well be why bother, right? So
Exactly.
even if someone gives you a 6, they're probably not that warm with your brand enough to do something about it. So you might as well focus on the 9s or 10s.
Well, yes and no, but the 0s and 6s you can definitely work with because it's very, very easy to hate a company. It's hard to hate a person. And those 0s and 6s, if they just told you that they loathe you and you do nothing about it, you just went ahead and reinforced that. So our workflow goes that they get an email back from somebody in management that says, "We apologize for this. How can we make it right?" We get automated text to somebody in management that says, "Hey, this person, just was displeased with our service. Here's the product they got on this date, and here's their phone number." And we don't get a lot of detractors, but when we do, we always go ahead and reach out to them. And it's amazing when somebody gives you, a 5 or a 6, and even a 1 or a 2, and you call them up and you listen to them, you validate what they said, you try to make it right, you try to solve the system so that we don't have that for other people in the future. Most of the time they come back and say, "Hey, could you send me that survey again? I want to change that to a 10." So from that standpoint, you have to work on both ends of the spectrum. Those 7 and 8s, they really don't care about you, so you're wasting your time trying to convert them.
Gotcha. Cool. So I guess let's kind of wrap up all of it. So you have all these guides on your store. If someone's looking to kind of make their own content and have different funnels, where do you even start? Because your operation is clearly very advanced now, and if you just have 1 or 2 segments, where should someone kind of get started?
This has been built over time. Now, the first thing is to identify who your ideal customer is, and then just start answering their questions. And you can answer it in videos, on podcasts, on blogs, really wherever they're getting their information. And after you go ahead and get 6 or 7 blogs together on a certain theme, you could probably put those together and make an ebook out of it. It's the same content there. And then once somebody else starts asking another question, think, oh, we could do an ebook on that. And just give yourself the goal of, what we did is once a quarter we were to come out with an ebook. And it was always clear what the next one was. I mean, we've got one that's, how to exercise on crutches. We got at that, or how to stay fit and not gain weight. We got asked that by so many people that it was like, okay, well, let's write, 4 or 5 blogs about it, and then we'll go ahead and put those into an e-guide. So I always say the best thing is just to answer the question. If your customers are asking questions, just answer it, as clearly as you can. Don't try to get cute and great literature and everything like that. Just answer the question.
Gotcha. So you're using blog posts as kind of like the test grounds to make the content. Is that kind of safe to say? Or?
Yes, and also, like I said before, repurposing content. So if you tried the content out and the blog worked well, then go ahead and use it in other content there. And the other thing is that it's when you say an ebook, it can be intimidating. How am I going to write an 8-page ebook? Well, if you could write, a 600-word blog, can you do that? Most people go, yeah, I think I could do that. Okay, well, write 5 of those on a certain theme or topic, and then we'll put them all together in an ebook. So it's a natural way to do it. And even so, if you want to start with an ebook first, well, then go ahead and break that up into blog posts. We always need to repurpose content. One of the things that you can do is the easiest way at the beginning, which one of these people are you most like? And put the 4 avatars up there. We did some testing, and everybody says, oh, just ask for their email address. When we went and put extra questions on, and granted, it was only 2 extra questions or an open-ended questions, people were just as likely to fill that out. People like to talk about themselves, and especially if you can make it easy things that they can click, it's worthwhile. So I always say test that, and if they can self-select, that's the best way. Because give you an example, there could be somebody that's 50 years old, and I might look at them and say they're Jerry the on-the-go grandparent. But if in their mind they're young and active, well, then I want to go ahead and show them, give them content that has context to them.
Yeah, that was one thing I had an issue with, because if you look at this podcast, there's people that have stores and people that don't, and by that nature, the content should be really, really different, right? So, and then it was like, well, once people have stores, the more advanced people want other stuff. So it's like, you got to segment this. Like if I had like a bucket of like 10,000 people, I'd much rather have like, really niche buckets of like 1,000 each, where I know exactly who they are, rather than a big bucket of like random people.
So you just signed yourself up for 5 more podcasts, or 5 different shows, right?
Something like that, yeah, kind of. But you see what I mean, right? If I had this general pool, which I did have when I started out, I just didn't know what to send to everyone, because it was just this one list. And then about like a year, and I started segmenting it. Then now I have a better idea of like what's going on behind the scenes.
And I love to ask people to self-segment. If you just ask them like an email list, what do you want to get information about? What are you most interested about? They'll self-select right there. We worked with a nonprofit company that didn't see themselves as e-commerce, but it was a classic e-commerce problem. They were selling like summer camps was the only thing they were selling off their website, but then they were giving donations too. And all they would ask was, how much do you want to give? And we worked with them and said, well, why don't you ask them what they want the money to go to? Because if they say children's programs or the zoo or the arboretum or elderly programs, well, and your newsletters where you keep asking for more money, if they wanted the money to go for the zoo, always send them pictures and stories about the zoo, because they really don't care about the other stuff. And they were like, that's great. And they've seen actual, their open rates gone up on their emails, and their engagement has too. It's been too early to figure out if it means more money, but it definitely seems like it's working.
Awesome. All right, then. Well, thanks, Tom, for joining us on the show. Well, actually, where can we find you online?
Probably the best place to find me online is just at tmschwab.com. That's where you'll see all the resources there. And I'll also go ahead and share the link with you guys. And if you want to put it in the show notes, it's there. But once you fill out one form on my site, I don't hide everything behind forms on that site. So if you fill out one form, you get open access to all the free resources. And there's all kinds of stuff there for the Net Promoter Score. I've got a video of a presentation I did that explains it and explains how to set up that workflow. So if that was interest to you or any content ideas, just head over to TM Schwab, and there's a lot of free stuff there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to swipe that survey promoter file you have there and build it into my confirmation emails and stuff like that. Awesome. All right, Travis, anything from you before we wrap up?
No, that sounds great. I agree with you. I'm going to have to try to get more brand advocates on my side.
Yeah. Alrighty then. Well, Tom, thanks again for joining us, and I'll let you know when this goes live, probably on Sunday too. So, and we'll keep in touch.
All right. Thanks, guys.